What is going on, you guys? It's your boy, the Hacking Cracker here, and we're back with episode 71 of the video game therapy series. Don't mind what I'm doing on screen this time. It's I guess it's kind of a secret, but no, it's the next Let's Play episode I'm editing up now. This is part of that, but very grindy work, so I will be working on this during this session. So yeah, I got some interesting things to talk about. At least, hopefully, they're interesting to somebody. Let's see. I guess I'll start with this because it's I don't know, it's the bottom one on my list. Why the pseudonym? So obviously, my legal name is not Rusty Buckets 30, capital R, capital B with a Z. And it's pretty obscure. But it's an intentional decision. It's not any. It's not like I'm not a government spy or anything like that, and have to hide my anonymity for that reason. It's not even really that anonymous. I leave a pretty thick breadcrumb trail. If somebody really want to figure out if they're an investigative journalist of some kind, I'm sure they could figure out who I am. But I actually think that there is a certain gravity to a pseudonym that I guess kind of allows for more, I don't know, unperturbed speech. So I feel a little more freeing to say whatever I want, given that there is, I suppose, less of any professional stake at stake, really. Just because it's, again, very obscure. It's not tied to my name or my identity otherwise, at least not directly, and not now. So I'm not really risking anything by, saying fuck or saying shit. I could at least say whatever the fuck I want. And that's kind of the point of this, is I think if especially like, God forbid, posting on LinkedIn and stuff is enough of a cesspool already. But given the fact that people all feel like they have some reputation at stake whenever they're doing that, just results in just very, I don't know, thought that falls very squarely within acceptable bounds. Whereas I think really the whole purpose of me doing anything, really doing this and the whole channel, is just to have a kind of an outlet that is independent of that, right? And sure, I'm certain that if I was an enemy of the state, they could figure out pretty quickly what jackass is behind this stupid channel. Because again, I don't do too much to do that. But even throughout history, there were a number of influential, notably like Ben Franklin, his pseudonym was Silence Dogood, if I recall correctly. I think I learned that from National Treasure. I hope that wasn't a lie, just a bit for the movie. But regardless, I do think he was onto something, and I'm certain there were many others. There are many authors and things that write under pseudonyms, and sometimes it is for, like, I suppose, the classic nefarious reasons. But this is truly just so for it's a more, you get closer to a ideal of free speech and free thought with a pseudonym, because I'm not as concerned with losing whatever little I might have at stake professionally if this were tied to my real name. The other thing is it kind of removes the ad hominems, which I often just become very, it's not even that, they're just like, they're not really constructive, in the sense that somebody could say, well, according to your this and that, you can't make this argument here. It's like, I think the whole point of, again, there's a reason I try not to get too personal with a lot of these, with opinions. I like to remain in the abstract, is because anytime you bring like this anecdote or anecdata, I suppose, if it's aggregate, or even just like, well, my personal experience is this, and yet obviously I share opinions on this, but I think I try to tend towards topics that are, again, more in the abstract, that don't involve my individuality in any way, or my individual experience, really, perhaps individuality in a different sense, but they're not built off of my individual experiences and my namesake and whatnot, that provide any credibility to me, right? So if you suppose I don't know, let's suppose I worked at Google as a vice president, and all of a sudden, like, that was well-known information, then you kind of automatically assign more weight to what I was saying, versus I think you should listen to what I'm saying regardless of who the fuck is saying it, right? Even if this was a toddler behind the mic with, some weird deep fake voice generator that made me sound like this. I'm not a toddler, if you're wondering. But even if that was the case, right? It's still with that. I hope that wouldn't. I mean, of course, it would obviously change your perception, but regardless, it should almost be that level of obscured in the sense that if it's like, oh well, Bill Gates says this or Bill Gates, and that's why I hate really just figures and things that use their. It's not even really using their names. I suppose they're just people conflate any like personal success or some amount of achievement in whatever sense of the person to whatever the fuck they're saying. And it could be the most brain dead take of all time, but just because a smart person is saying it doesn't mean jack diddly shit. And I think that's part of the function of a pseudonym is that there's no person here. Like, again, there is, but it's technically no person that you can draw on their experiences or their like reputation from, right? Because Neil deGrasse Tyson has some raw take on something. You're like, well, he's this physicist and he has his master's degree and all this other shit. And I'm not saying none of that's worthless, but I'm saying that often clouds the judgment of whatever the fuck he just said, right? I don't care who he is or what he's doing. What did he say, right? And sure, yeah, it can add to an argument or a thought of some kind, but I feel like now it monopolizes it, right? We're so, whoa, this person said this. It's like the person said it. What do they say? I don't care who said it. What is it that they said that, what is that, right? And I guess it kind of falls back to the whole artist versus separating the artist from the art. And I suppose a pseudonym is one strategy for doing that, right? And I've been a proponent of, I think art and artists should be separate, unless, again, the art is about the artist, right? It's like, I think the example I used, this was a long time ago, back in the archives, was like, Hitler draws a painting or paints it, because Hitler was, a failed painter. That was one of his well-known, the funny jokes. But, he paints a picture, a drawing of a boat, right? Okay, I wouldn't know that it's Hitler otherwise. It's just a boat. Okay, it's not like I can, I didn't study Hitler's art. It's a boat. That's all I can see. Versus if he drew a picture of him murdering a bunch of people, okay, then then the artist kind of becomes relevant. But until then, it's a picture of a boat. I don't give a fuck who it is that, it's not, again, if the picture is about Hitler killing people, then all right, now I can see that. And it's probably important that, Hitler was the one that painted this, but if it's just a boat, it's a fucking boat, and I think the same should apply to, I'll say logical arguments, really arguments or discussions of any kind, right? You can't be, just because this person is, oh, he worked at Google, he has to know what he's talking about. That doesn't mean fucking shit. Oh, he's a PhD. That doesn't mean shit either. I don't give up. Like, I think we assign way too much value to these arbitrary things. And it's, again, as somebody who's had some experience in higher education, again, I'm bringing anecdotes into this. It is monkey see, monkey do. I almost think people with more advanced degrees become more foolish to an extent. And I'm being a bit facetious with that, because, on average they're, a high school dropout versus somebody with a PhD. PhD's probably a bit smarter, but regardless, I still don't think we should be, why are we focused on that? What are they saying, right? What's coming out of their mouth? So I don't know, especially as someone who, I will say that most of my learning, and I use education learning differently because I think they are kind of separate entities, has happened outside of a formal education. You would have no idea. I could be a moron with the same credentials I have now, right? And I think the same goes for anyone else. I mean, perhaps this PhD is, again, equally as self-driven and as brilliant in many ways. I don't know. What's he saying? I don't care if he's a PhD. What is he saying? And so I think that's part of the strong argument about why I use a pseudonym with this, is that it kind of frees up the speech and it can separate what I'm saying with who I am. Because it's not, in many ways, what I'm saying doesn't fucking matter who I am. Right? Again, I could be a toddler. Does it matter? Again, are the things I'm saying, do they have merit? Okay, well then assess them on that basis, And of course, unless it's about me, but I try to make things as little about me as possible. So, but again, this isn't really for anyone else anyway. The whole point I do of any of these videos is so I can look back later on and be like, God, I was an idiot. So I don't know. It's kind of like a living photo album, except I can hear my voice and laugh at how dumb my opinions are. So, I don't know. Anyway, yeah. So I don't know why the pseudonym. I hope that that clears it up. I suppose something else with regard to free speech, and I suppose I near towards, you know, I always hesitate to say if I'm a free speech absolutist, because there's always like, oh, what about fire in a movie theater, or what about, there's all these goofy fucking, you know, edge cases that people consider, and I really think the issues with that don't fall on the problem. The reason I hesitate so strongly in saying I'm a free speech absolutist is not because of a person saying something. It is because of the people listening. And, you know, obviously, of course, like, you know, the movie theater example of like, oh, you expect people to have judgment and know that there's not a fire or something. I don't know. But I mean more so of like, given the fact that we pretty much have this technological megaphone in the form of the internet, any opinion or take can be and probably will be assumed by the lowest common denominator, whatever that might mean to you, stupid people. So that's kind of the audience in mind with any take. So let's say you say something completely sarcastic, ironic, just a brain dead, you know, take. Well, now it's in the hands of the dumbest. I mean, I'm kind of using these terms loosely because in many ways I think we're all kind of the dumbest person in some way, in one way or the other. But then the dumbest person in the world gets their hands on this. Again, maybe it's like a meta-ironic take where it's like 80% joking, 20% serious, right? But, you know, some absolute moron gets their hands on it. And now what? Now we've created a problem. And I don't think the problem was the fact that you said something, you know, meta-ironic, and you have to be very careful about the different, you know, tones in your, you know, text or whatever the fuck, whatever medium you published this information in. But the fact is the listeners are the problem, in the sense who's the receivers of information are poor disseminators now, especially given the fact that we can amplify our voice to a level really increasingly never before seen in history. So I think that's kind of the problem with me saying it's free speech absolutism, because again, any counter argument against the, you know, why you shouldn't be a free speech absolutist is kind of contingent upon the fact that if a dumb person hears this, what happens? Right? You know, if a dumb, you know, you again make some sly comment or something funny about, I don't know, some, again, quote unquote violent act, and then some moron actually like takes it, you know, again, that's not, I don't really think it's the problem on the person saying something, oh, he incited violence, or he was, and again, because it puts it in the hands of the dumbest possible person. So again, I would defend the person's right to say whatever the fuck they want. Again, the absolutist of free speech. But I think the real problem is that we have individuals that are problematic. And I don't know. Again, maybe that's a little, I suppose, cynical and things. But I think it really has to do with it's a problem of scale, and the fact that we have this, again, technological microphone is what creates that problem. You know, because, you know, and also like I guess presumed, I'll say, anonymity of the internet, which again isn't really presumed anymore because it's quite hard to stay anonymous, actually. Damn near impossible, really, if you're trying, depending on who your I don't know who your threat actors are. If you can't really hide from a state actor. I don't think it's very, very difficult. So it's a full-time job, really, to have OPSEC that good. But anyway, I don't know. Like I said, I always lean towards saying I'm a free speech absolutist, but the problem is I would defend anything to have been said. I think it's better to have said it than to not say it. But the issue is that receivers are, I don't know, the problem I see with that. So I don't know. I suppose this is, yeah, I guess we'll move on to this next thing. I don't know. Advancement. I don't know. I suppose depending on how you categorize different things, you could put me in a number of different categories when it comes to advancement. I've been critical of things before, and like I said last time, I don't think I am a pessimist. I think I am a hopeful. I lean pessimistic, but I'm hopeful in the sense that I do think it's possible to see our way out. But I don't lean towards things are always going to be good. And I think a lot of scientists, especially, and I guess I'm talking to the PhDs here, who I don't know, make it a point to almost just adopt a very accelerationist attitude, which again is just foot on the gas pedal. Science will solve all our problems. And I guess looking historically, has science really solved all of our problems? You know, I mean, I'm not saying that we invented agriculture to solve the problem of food, which we kind of solved the food. We still have people starving. So I think we didn't really solve, we solved the problem of like creating mass food. We didn't solve the problem of distributing it correctly, especially now that we've kind of assimilated into one big blob of world. So I don't know. There's an argument to be made that I guess technologies that advance, while they might, you know, patch up holes in the ship, they're ultimately still tearing new ones. And I think accelerationists are especially blind to that impact, to the fact that, oh, well, we can solve these problems, and imagine how quick we could build these apps. It's like, okay, well, there's a number of other holes in the ship that you're putting here by developing this technology. And of course, that's not really, you don't really have an opt out anyway now. So yeah, the argument is always, well, you're participating in this in this technological capitalist society, so you know you have no reason to complain. It's like, well, it wasn't really, you know, I didn't ask to be born. I suppose is one response to that. You know, I didn't choose this configuration. I landed here, and then, you know, now of course it gives me no room to be critical. I call bullshit. So I don't know. I think my real problem with accelerationists is that it's, I don't know. I suppose I want to move away from accelerations. I don't really want to bash on them because I've bashed on them before. But perhaps the life goal of many people in that camp or a similar one would be to, discover the mysteries of the world. We need to go to Mars to, you know, inhabit other planets. And then once we inhabit other planets, we have to, you know, we have to live forever. And once we live forever, we got to, you know, do everything. It's like, the problems never really end. I think it doesn't take a genius to see that. It's like, as soon as there's always going to be the next big heist. to reference Rick and Morty, there's always going to be there's always the next big score. It doesn't end. Okay, it doesn't end. It won't end ever. Once we get to Mars, it'll be the next planet, and once we get out of this, it'll be the next thing. And sure, it's like a childhood fantasy to salivate over, if you get to Mars and get to space and we advance. And yes, I realize that there's some like fun in advancing, right? I think, you know, it's the same reason I build the stupid world. The stupid world I'll never finish this Minecraft world. It's like, that's not the point. But I think my real issue is that it is incumbent upon other people's participation as well. It's like, you make me out to be evil because I don't care as much about getting to Mars and discovering the mysteries of quantum mechanics. I think at a certain level, we can agree that humans, biological humans, I suppose I'm not talking about augmented humans, even augmented humans, are limited. We have trouble comprehending even basic concepts that we've invented. Even like the concept of infinity is something that, sure, we can like mathematically grasp infinity and we can write equations with it, but you're not really capable of thinking infinitely, right? It just kind of seems infinite, but we don't really know. I don't know. It's very meta to speak about infinity, because again, even any human can say that they understand it, but they can't really comprehend it. Like, it's like the scale of the universe. We can talk about, it's 86 billion quadbillion Google-its, or it's like whatever stupid units they have now to measure that. I have no frame of fucking reference. How many oranges is that? I mean, how many suns is that? I have no frame of reference. I can't even visualize that on any kind of scale whatsoever. Even with those little YouTube videos, it does not a scale that you can comprehend at all. So you can't comprehend infinity. Like, you just literally can't. I don't care who you are, it's not, the human brain cannot comprehend that scale. So inherently, I'm saying that humans are limited. And in the case that the mysteries are unlimited, to a certain extent, I think we should kind of embrace the limitations, or even just as I guess embracing uncertainty and being okay with just not knowing. And I think that's where I diverge a lot from people who are, I don't know, very, very heavy science, or like very, very heavy scientific progress, I'll say, is that there are a number of things that I would just say, oh, we don't know. Oh, that's fine. I don't have to know the mysteries of quantum mechanics. I don't have to know, what the inside of Mars looks. I don't give a shit, right? And it's like, yeah, part of me is I don't give a shit, but part of it is I'm okay with not knowing. And I think people who are very, very deep into science, and maybe who were, were tinkerers as kids, and always loved understanding something. And don't get me wrong, I tinker too. I like understanding stuff. I do stuff all the time, but there's a certain extent to where I'm okay with just not knowing, and I'm okay with just living a life in ignorance, and that's fine. Because again, I kind of address bluntly that my brain is obviously not built even to comprehend something as simple, mathematically, as infinity. We can't even comprehend that. And I keep saying we because I don't want to make it sound like I can't comprehend infinity, but you could. I think if you, oh my God, if you are, I don't know, if you're honest with yourself, and you, I don't think you even really know what it means to even say if you do comprehend it or not. Of course, I can say I comprehend infinity. I can do math with it, right? I can write a limit and do calculus with infinity. I've done plenty of mathematical stuff with infinity, but regardless, I can't wrap my head around the size of infinity, right? The size of the universe. I can keep zooming out, but I won't reach infinity, right? I can visualize a limit in that sense, but I can't visualize infinity. And neither can you. So I guess I'm just going to say that bluntly. So it's not like, oh, well, you're just not smart enough to visualize infinity. Regardless, I think, so humans are inherently limited in that regard. And sure, we could maybe augment ourselves with processors and whatnot, and be more robot than human. And perhaps we'll have, greater processing power to, again, discover more of these mysteries, which is fine. It's a noble goal to be a mystery discoverer, and go on this, big national treasure hunt of whatever. But, don't make that my problem. Okay. I'm okay with accepting a good, healthy amount of uncertainty with the world. Oh, why is this the way it works? I don't fucking know. I don't, okay, that's all right. Oh, why do some kids get bone cancer and die? I don't know. I didn't, again, you could point at God, you could point at science, you could point at anything, you could just point at randomness. I guess it's just kind of accepting random, right? I don't know, it's random, dude. You don't have to know, right? It's okay. Even if we did, like, quote unquote, figure this thing out, who knows we'd even be able to comprehend it, again, because we kind of invented this concept of infinity, but we don't really understand it. I mean, we understand it, again, mathematically, but conceptually we can't wrap our brains around it, because we're finite, in that sense. And a lot of things seem infinite to us. Again, like I talked about last time, our brains even seem infinite to us, right? So it's not like the concept isn't entirely foreign, but the actual conceptualization of it is impossible for humans. So I don't know. I think part of it is this, I guess, live and let live philosophy. And I guess the way I dubbed this was a copyleft life philosophy, meaning that your life philosophy can be, again, whatever you like, but you should, again, respect the philosophies of other people. Just like, I guess, copyleft licenses. So I guess a quick primer, I suppose, if you're not familiar with copyleft license. I hadn't heard of it until about a year or so ago anyway. So copyright is obviously like the government granted temporary monopoly on a piece of quote unquote intellectual property, which, again, I agree with Stallman in the sense that I hate the word intellectual property. Regardless, it's a temporary government sanctioned monopoly so that you can make money, and it's all ultimately supposed to be a way for again, intellectual property to enter the public domain, because that's ultimately the point of it. It's not, the point of copyright isn't to just lock something up forever and sit on it like a duck. The point is to supposedly create more innovation, which is quite ironic considering how fucked up the copyright system is now. But regardless, that's copyright. I think everyone's mostly familiar with that. Copyleft is not really the opposite. I suppose it's like you're free to do whatever the fuck you want. And again, it's mostly in the space of software. I don't know if there's other copyleft. I guess Creative Commons CC0, which is I guess it's somewhat similar. It's like you can do whatever the fuck you want with this, but the thing is you can't lock it down. You can't. So like something that's copyleft, and I'll also use software here because it's an easy example, but suppose you have some code base that's copyleft license, like the GPL3 or the AGPL or something like that. You can do whatever you want with it. You can copy it, distribute it, mutate it, do whatever, but you can't like license it under then a proprietary license. Like it has to be open. So that's copyleft. And I don't want to get into the nitty gritties of that. I want to talk about the copyleft philosophies of, I guess, living philosophies. So I guess the reason that these uber scientists and these people who are so determined to solve the mysteries of quantum mechanics in the world piss me off is because they're kind of violating this copyleft principle in the sense that they're imposing their life philosophy of uncovering the mysteries onto me. Whereas my philosophy is not, again, I embrace uncertainty. I'm okay with just not knowing shit and realizing that I'm more or less a sentient meatball walking around and making shit up and, groaning in other sentient meatballs. It's a bit reductive. Regardless, I'm kind of accepting that, but now I have to, it's like you're almost shaming me for not wanting to get to Mars and to eradicate polio and or eradicate all these other, solve this climate crisis and all these other problems and shit. And you're shaming me for rejecting the notion of science being helpful in this. And I'm not saying science isn't inherently is unhelpful by nature. It's because it's not. I'm just saying that don't make it my problem, right? Fine. If you want to go again, uncover the mysteries of quantum mechanics, don't impose any will on me. So again, respect the freedoms of my philosophy to kind of, again, respect random in some sense, to be okay with uncertainty of it. So I suppose that's, I'm kind of proposing a copyleft life philosophy where you can believe whatever you want, but the moment that infringes on other people's beliefs, then it becomes a problem. So like, for example, let's suppose that, for some reason, your life philosophy was to murder as many people as possible. Well, that is not a copyleft life philosophy because by murdering other people, you are, again, infringing on their philosophy. So that would be a violation of my copyleft life philosophy principle. Similarly, really anything that involves fucking with other people or doing something that, again, forces other people to, let's say it's like make as much money as possible through whatever means possible. And you are, this effective altruist scamming people out of billions or whatever. We've seen that story before, haven't we? But again, that infringes to a relatively indecent extent or decent extent onto other people's their ability to, again, like for me, for example, it affects my philosophy to, again, just appreciate humanity as it is. So I don't know. I'm kind of proposing that as an idea, and I'm curious to think more about where it would fall apart. I think it's difficult to measure impact. I think with something like software licenses, we can kind of easily say that, oh, is this the same freedoms as the other one versus like as a life philosophy on what point am I, even if let's say if I'm like my philosophy is trying to help as many people as possible and like I volunteer at a soup kitchen, there's arguments to be made. I'm not saying that they're good arguments, but there's still arguments that like even helping people and like, volunteering in a soup kitchen or something can still result in negative impacts on the people you're trying to help. And again, the arguments they're pretty weak, but they're still like, it's still not entirely invalid to think that even efforts towards doing something good with your life that affects others, you could still negatively impact them. So it's like, I don't know, there's the whole, I wouldn't say scandal, but the whole thing around like missionaries in other countries and how they're actually like a drag on the local economies and they become more of a problem. But really they're trying to do something nice, but it kind of backfires. And so that's why I kind of try to adopt a more individualistic philosophy with generally, and try to just stay out of people's way. And again, I suppose try to help where I can, but it's not like I don't prioritize stuff like, missionary work or evangelical work in that sense. I guess in a more direct way. And in some ways, everyone's an evangelical of some kind, because you have to interact with other people and do some stuff, and you always have influence in that sense. So I suppose it is it does fall apart quite quickly. But regardless, I'm speaking maybe more directly at people that I guess stand behind science as this beacon of everything. And I hate that it comes across like I'm a science hater, because I'm not. I consider myself. I obviously I try to use logic and scientific-esque reasoning with a lot of my discussions, but I think I also inherently, I don't know, I'm very aware of limitations that come with science. And I think people that they grew up knowing science, they got their PhD, they all know science and science and science and science, but they kind of, it's not everything, right? There's many, again, kind of randomness and indescribable things that science will just not be able to describe or understand. And sure, we could get closer, and I'm not saying it's a waste of time to study quantum mechanics or something like that, but I'm just saying don't make it my problem. If don't make it seem like I'm an evil because I don't care about, building a quantum computer to do, whatever. I think that, again, it could make the argument that it causes more problems than it solves, right? Again, we've done that like 100 times now with, we have this new solution, we'll solve these problems. And then again, we're just punching a bigger hole in our boat, because we didn't think it through. And now you have these other problems. So like, God damn it, so yeah, I don't know. So I suppose there's a lot to go there. So something else with this regard that I find is it's overused a lot in the fields of technology, and really technology, I'll say like economics and geopolitics, I suppose, to be very, very broad. But it is this reasoning by analogy, which I do all the time. I'm as guilty of this as anybody, but I see it increasingly try to be used as like the dagger, and I hate framing arguments as some kind of battle, but I suppose in this case it might work. But it's like, oh well, imagine capitalism is like a lemonade stand, and yada yada yada. It's like, okay, fine. I suppose in your example, if I imagine that this is a lemonade, it's not though, right? It's like, imagine an apple is an orange. Yes, they're both like circular fruits that are citrusy and sweet and about the size of a baseball. But they're not. An apple is not an orange. Capitalism is not a fucking lemonade stand. So you can't yes, I understand it as a useful tool, and it's probably like a good first step of conceptualizing a problem. But to be so reductive as to think that you can just boil shit down to I see it a lot of times with AI. Well, AI is just like XYZ. It's like, it's just no, it isn't. It's not. We can pick all the analogies we want, and the meme I come back to is it's like some TV show or something, but you've seen it. It's where the guy's like, if this had ham in it, it'd be like some pasta dish, and then this guy's like, oh, if my grandmother had wheels, she would have been a bike, and then they just start dying laughing. But it's like, it's true, yeah. It's completely different. It's not. An apple is not an orange. Capitalism is not a fucking lemonade stand. Yes, I understand you're trying to make a point about the system and how it's, a efficient, resource allocator or something like that. But it's not. You can't use these simple analogies to gotcha people into thinking. Because sure, I'm sure if you modeled capitalism, in whatever way you want to frame that, as a fucking lemonade stand, you could come to some pretty ridiculous conclusions about, the efficient market hypothesis and all this other shit that, I guess these very pro-capitalist people come to. But it's not a lemonade stand, okay? There aren't 7 billion people involved in the lemonade stand, and you're selling a hell of a lot more than just fucking lemonade. So I don't know. There's just it bothers me that people have this reductive idea about analogies and how powerful they are. And I use analogies all the time, but that's mostly, I think, as a conceptual tool to help understand the basics of the problem or thing, the discussion at hand. It should not be used as the weapon against any kind of counter argument. So someone says something, oh, well, the taxes are undue, yada, yada, yada. And then someone goes, well, if it's a lemonade stand, then we know that. It's like, it's not a lemonade stand, though. Quit making that analogy. Or LLMs with, or AI is, AI is just like the XYZ technology was invented here to be the same way. No, it won't. Okay, we have most the stuff that we're going through has never been gone through before. So we can. I understand that history is important and that it often repeats itself, but it doesn't always have to repeat it. So surely there are things that happen for the first time in history, right? Everything has happened before. Really? Are you making that argument? Because that's ridiculous. So surely first time things can happen. And surely we've never done this exact thing before. So I would say you can't be certain of anything. You can't say, well, it'll be just like the internet was in 1999. I disagree. I think we're in a new, and again, it's new in a sense that has not happened before. Again, results might be comparable, but I think, certifying that they're comparable is a stupid idea. And I think it often comes from this direct analogy thinking. Oh, well, an apple is like an orange. Yes, an apple is like an orange, but apples are not oranges. So sure, I suppose it's helpful to, like, if you need to conceptualize a round fruit, but it's not helpful beyond that. Okay, it's not like you're going to answer all questions about an orange by holding a fucking apple. So I don't know. I guess I'm using using an analogy to get pissed off about analogies. So I don't know. Oh man. I guess I'll. Yeah, I suppose this is just. I don't know. I'm not sure if this is even original, but I came up with this today. No, this happens a lot. Again, I'm kind of thinking this is more back to my earlier point about people who are destined and driven to discover the mysteries of life. And they're all just, I'm towards this meaning of truth. And my whole life is in the pursuit of this truth. And I think, again, I don't think you have to think about this too long to realize that there's a certain spontaneity and randomness in our truth anyway, right? There's a whole subjective, objective truth, or scientific, unscientific, religious truth. I mean, there's all these. What truth are we talking about here? Again, there's no really universal truth of anything. All right, and you could say, well, the laws of physics. Even the laws of physics are, again, merely, like I said, they might be rules for the 1,000-mile road, but, perhaps what about in the million-mile? What about after the sun collapses, right? What if our whole concept of physics only works at this, whatever? I don't know. I think generally we should err on the side of our knowledge is limited in that regard. So it's not that I hate or I don't care about truth or I think truth is dumb. I don't think that at all. I just don't value truth over life. So my quote that I had was that I do care about truth, but not at the expense of life. And I guess that kind of leaves some things vague, but it leaves it on vague on purpose because, again, I think truth in and of itself is kind of a vague concept. And so is life. But I think that's kind of, again, that's where I find kind of the beauty in it. There's not it is kind of like, what is this? It's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of vague and foggy regardless. Why do horrible things happen? Just kind of just how, it's how she goes, right? So, I don't know. I think I certainly don't not value truth at all. I think there's a lot of value in truth. I think there's something to be said about the nobility of pursuing truth as an ends, but I don't value it more than life itself, so time saved is never as valuable as time cherished. So I don't know, I just thought of that quote and wanted to share. Let's see here. I suppose something else that this is totally tangential, but it is what it is. People's time. Everyone loves to, I especially see this a lot with people that, um, like, I say like refuse to self-educate, but are not very self-driven learners, or maybe they're just not curious. Or I really just think that the curiosity is beaten out of them because I just don't buy it that humans are inherently not curious. I mean, look at any child. Okay, they are just teeming with curiosity. Any child anywhere, like all of them. That's why they like try to kill themselves half the time. Is because they're not sure what a toaster does and they're just jamming utensils in there or whatever. So I mean, curiosity is like the defining characteristic of a child, and I think we can carry that and foster that throughout our entire life. I don't think we turn 20 and we just forget how to ask questions. I think we just learn or that people don't like answering hard questions, or maybe God answered all your questions or some pastor did, or I don't know. There's all kinds of reasons as to why the curiosity gets beaten out of people, but I just don't buy that people aren't curious. So again, that's as a brief aside, but people that, again, have lost their curiosity and say, well, I don't want to understand this. I don't want to learn anything. Or maybe it's specific technology. I guess I use this more in the concept of technology because I often go down rabbit holes where I learn something or I'll just figure something out in, I guess, techie wise, just because I don't know, it bugs me and I want to understand it. Why the hell not? And it happens outside of that thing too. But the excuse I hear all the time, and this is the excuse I never hope to ever use in any circumstances. Well, I'm busy, I got other stuff to do. Anyway, time is really valuable. Your time is not valuable. Nobody's time is valuable at all. And you're never busy. It is just not a priority for you to do this. And that's fine. I think people can have different priorities, but to say that you're too busy just means that whatever it is just not a priority, which again should be what you say. You should say, this is not a priority for me. It's not that I'm too busy. I'm just not going to do this. Because if it's a priority, you will make the time. And my time is valuable. I'm busy. Your time is fucking worthless. What are you doing that's so valuable? What are you doing that's so valuable? I mean, I guess the only possible exception is if you're you're performing surgery on somebody and saving their life. Okay, maybe that as a specific instance I'll say okay, that's a pass. Sure. But you're a product manager, your time is worthless. Oh, I'm an engineer, your time is worthless. I'm a salesman, your time is worthless. My time is worthless. Don't I think people ascribe so much value to their time. It's well, I don't have time to learn this because I'm doing other stuff. So no, your time is worthless. Get over yourself. You're lying to yourself. So I don't know. I think many people in these cushy jobs who, I guess their lives are defined by inefficiency, quickly use my time is very valuable. I can't have time to learn this or do this. You're a clown. I don't know. Get over yourself. Your time is worth nothing. My time is worth nothing. So I suppose we'll see just how worthwhile your time is when we start automating. I'm certain I could probably automate some of these people's jobs anyway. Just give me a few weeks to understand what they do, and I guess a few hours behind a terminal, I can whip out some scripts to do whatever the fuck they're doing all day on Notion or something. I don't know. It's fucking annoying. Let's see. Speaking of analogies, I suppose since I mentioned Libre software and analogies, I would like to, I guess, explore the analogy of Libre software, or I guess Copyleft software, and democracy. Because the fundamental, I'm not talking about the implementation of democracy in America, because I'm not totally bought in that democracy in and of itself is a foolproof system. Not even that it's bad. I just think perhaps there's ways to augment it, but also that Western countries are any kind of democracies, because I think this voting system, this doesn't seem democratic at all. My voice is worthless. My time is worthless. I am nothing. I'm literally zero. regardless, the philosophical idea behind democracy is like this collective control, right? Because power tends to corrupt. So if we have the control is distributed amongst various parties, and again, the ideal case would be to everybody. Of course, that's not really how it works. Then we would be less likelihood that bad shit would happen, right? And I suppose with Libre software, it might even be a similar concept where with centralized, I guess, source code, then there's more likely that, I don't know, bad things can happen. And if things are distributed in the sense that everybody can freely see and modify and adjust and copy code, there's less likely that anything than bad shit that happens. And I guess I'm just trying to understand perhaps where that analogy might fall apart. And again, I realize things get a lot more hairy when there's not like granularly specifics on what exactly defines control, right? Because I would argue that like democratically in America, I have no control over any kind of government or anything. My control is it's negligible. If I died, no amount of control would be lost in my soul. Versus with software, there's like I control the programs that run on my computer. I control, again, Libre programs at least. And I don't know. I just think there's an analogy and a discussion to be had perhaps around those two ideas. And again, I'm speaking more about the philosophical idea of democracy and not necessarily like the government, because I think the word, even democratic, just the word, all of that has been kind of soiled by I don't know, its implementation. I guess namely in America, that's just because that's where I'm from, so I know that. So I don't know, anytime I kind of think of democracy, I just think of the founding fathers, and now to see where democracy is now, it doesn't seem like the word itself reflects what the idea behind it was. But I think the fundamental idea behind democracy is that there's bad shit's less likely to happen if power is distributed. So I don't know, maybe it's a more towards like distributed systems or peer-to-peer networks. Maybe there's a stronger analogy to be made between Libre software in there. And I suppose the attitude that I'm getting from people that that defend proprietary software is like, well, here's kind of the way I hear it is like, oh, well, who will protect me if the king doesn't? That's kind of how I see the, if Microsoft's code is open and, the Microsoft devs don't get to, hide behind the thing. Who will protect me if the king doesn't? Who will, if the king doesn't own the land, who will? It's like, you're putting your faith in the king here, and it reflects this fiefdom. And I think is perhaps the most fitting analogy I've used in this video so far. And maybe again I'm being a bit ghoulish, but truly I don't know. I have my patience for non-Libre software wanes as I don't know, as the rapid development of technology kind of takes over everything and it no longer becomes optional, because that's kind of, it goes back to the philosophy of it, is just nothing's optional anymore. Like, at a point cars were optional. Nope. Soon enough it'll be, oh, you don't have the iPhone, you have to have this Google sanctioned computer. Oh, you have to have this. Oh, you have to have the government approved job. It's like, literally, fuck you. How about that? I don't. Why is it that why do you have all the answers? Huh? Do you know everything? Are you this omnipotent being? Who is the omnipotent being? Oh, because a group of people decided they were omnipotent and understand everything in the universe that there is, and they get to tell me how to do everything. And I don't know how to do everything either, but I think all of us should accept a certain humility about ourselves to know that maybe, just maybe, we are not much more than sentient meatballs, blabbering and gargling noises at each other all day. And here we are thinking we're almighty. And we are a step above meatballs. So I don't know. I tend to be perhaps a bit too on the intellectually humble side, only because I think, I don't know, I just refuse to believe that we're close to solving and cracking the case of, you know, life's mysteries. There are infinitely more mysteries that we will probably never even get close to discovering because we are so limited. Not even limited biologically, limited in every sense, right? We're limited in senses that we don't even know exist. And it's hard for me to articulate because my speech is limited. So, I don't know. Just me being stupid. Yeah, this is a bit of a mess today, so I apologize if you were expecting higher quality, but, you know, you take what you can get with these things. So, anyway, thanks for watching, and I will see y'all in the next one. Peace out.